Welcome to That's the Word, wholesome tales for the whole family. I'm Father James Yamauchi. Today's story, No Deal. Mark embraced his wife and held her close. She cried into his shoulder. Saying goodbye was always hard. He gave her one final squeeze and kissed her. Then he bent down and embraced his sons. He knew how hard this was for his family. He had been overseas for quite some time. When he had returned, they were overjoyed. But now he was leaving again, so soon. Mark had given his word, and he would never go back on his word. Business had taken Mark overseas. Much had changed since the day he left. He had suffered setbacks and even demotion. While overseas, another company had made him an offer he could not refuse. They had sent him back to his homeland to negotiate a deal for them. If he secured this deal, they would release him from his contract and let him stay at home. However, if the negotiations went south, he was to return for a new assignment. Mark gave them his word. He would not go back on his word. To be quite frank, the deal was not in the best interest of his people. Even though his new company had sent him there to negotiate a new deal for them, once home, he earnestly begged his people not to accept the deal. The terms were attractive, but Mark was insistent. They could not accept this deal. His handlers were furious. The people listened to him and rejected the deal. Mark was relieved. He still intended to honor the agreement with his company, so he made ready to return. His countrymen were confused. Why would you return? They're going to be furious with you. Why not stay here? Stay here with your family and your friends. Put your traveling days behind you. No, Mark responded. I gave my word, and I will not go back on my word. When Mark returned to his new employer, he received an understandably cold reception. He was quickly put into a box and sidelined. And when I say put into a box, he was literally put into a box so narrow that he could barely stand and studded with nails so he could not lean in it. There they left Mark until he died. They had never been fond of Mark, ever since he led the armies of his homeland against them and won victory after victory against them. Eventually, however, he was defeated and captured. They sent him back home to negotiate a peace favorable to them. Before they let him go, they made Mark give his word that if the peace negotiations failed, he would return to them, still a prisoner. He gave his word. But when he got home, he urged his countrymen to press on the fight and not give up. true to his word, he returned to the land of his enemies, who dealt with him as was expected. Mark's countrymen in Rome did not falter, pressing the fight and eventually defeating their greatest enemy, Carthage, in the First Punic War, as was the wish of their great general and consul named Marcus Attilius Regulus. And for this week, that's the word. Marcus Attilius Regulus, John Peter, is certainly a historical figure, but this story is part of legend.
Yes, he is a real person. Regulus was a consul during the First Punic War and won many great victories. However, he disappears off the reliable historical record after his capture by the Carthaginians. It appears to be legend because it's not in the earliest sources, but it is an enduring one, and it's a very famous story. So famous, in fact, that it appears in works such as Augustine's City of God.
Which is amazing because Augustine was living at the middle of the 4th century, beginning of the 5th century. And when was the First Punic War?
That was the 3rd century BC.
So we had decided it was about 600 years.
About 600 years.
And it's fascinating to think that Augustine talks about this in his very famous work, The City of God.
If you enjoy That's the Word, please share the word. You can see the story extras for this story, No Deal, at thunderrock.org, where you can also see an image of Regulus, and we'll also link to some stuff about the First Punic War. Thunderrock.org is also where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter, and where you can find our social links in our email if you want to give any feedback or story ideas.
Thanks for listening, and join us next Wednesday for another wholesome tale for the whole family.